Welcome to this episode of Be the Wolf. I am here today with James Roberts. He has quite an accomplishment list, but we'll start with he's a success and performance coach. He's a two-time Paralympian. He's an author and he's a TEDx speaker and some other things too. Today, we're going to talk about this place of, I'm going to call it purgatory for today. It's that place where you're not happy, you don't like the way things are going, but yet you're not quite willing to do what it takes to get out of it. And a lot of times it takes the flames from, let's say, hell to, to burn your feet a little bit to motivate you to take the action. So let's start. James, can you tell us about what you're doing these days? Tell us the goods.
Well, Genea, I work with women over the age of 30, rediscover some of that confidence that they've lost. And how I do that is generally through weight loss, but also I'll give people like two choices: either work on like body transformation or work on deeper mindset issues that they've got under the surface. And obviously for me, I like and I've got a fascination towards the latter. So I think it goes hand in hand because I think people can appreciate and can see body transformation a lot easier because it's ever present in magazines, television, just the way that we interact with each other. Whereas obviously you and I and other coaches, we can obviously operate on the latter part because it's like, well, in order for me to make massive strides in my life, I've got to have a better understanding and awareness of where I've come from, where I'm at, and where I'm looking to get to in the future. So that depend on the level of the individual and maybe their openness to go into deeper issues. I might do it more gradually, and then if somebody that's like really, really open to the idea that okay, they need to go hand in hand to make massive strides in the future. Obviously, we'll go a little bit deeper, and then obviously, the person wants to work on that solely.
Yeah.
It's not a problem as well, and maybe the additional thing of losing weight is like second fiddle to it. So that's where I come from, as giving that overall package of more roundedness, because the world that I've operated in for majority of my career has been, it's more based on looks, appearance,
Right.
whereas that's only going to get you so far, because if you don't have a greater understanding of who you want to become, you're going to always be at odds with yourself. So we're going to talk about this.
Yeah.
So that's where I found a great purpose in life, and I would even say it supersedes what you've mentioned before in the introduction. Some people might not believe that, but as in that's where I perceive that I have a greater impact on what I do now than what I did in we'll call it a past life.
Well, and it's so true. Just this idea of weight loss, right? We're especially as women, like we have to be skinny and we have to be for all these different reasons. When you don't understand why you have to be skinny in your mind, that's one thing. If you don't understand what the mindset is such a big piece of it. And this is why people go back and forth. I can hold it together. I can hold it together, get through this diet, lose the weight, work out. And then as soon as they get to that place, it's like that they were trying to get to, all that motivation collapses. And little by little, the weight comes back on. And so it really is a broader, to keep the weight off, to maintain that healthy lifestyle that we, in theory, all desire. It takes more than just, 3-6 months of doing the work. And it's what's going on in your mind that's going to keep you steady to be able to maintain that lifestyle for your life and create the good things that you really want in your life. So those of you that have done the yo-yo dieting and the get in shape, not get in shape, the stuff around what's going on with your mind and subconscious beliefs and all of that stuff plays such a big role. So if you really want to make those lifestyle changes, it's more than working with just a physical trainer that's going to work you out on that day or going on a diet. If you want it to last forever.
Well, it's soul searching. So you and I both have probably done it. So we're not telling somebody to tread a path that we've not done to some extent, depending on how
Right.
far that I'm gonna use a metaphor now. Was about the yellow brick road where you and I both are probably at some stage or another have tread that path.
Yeah.
That's obviously slightly different. I mean, being a male, to the fascination with the mindset is obviously it's unique because you're trying to awaken that individual to kind of go. I'm going to throw the health and fitness industry under the bus now.
Good.
It's not their fault that they've become unstuck with a yo-yo because it doesn't matter where you look, what you watch. There's information that's kind of misguiding individuals to make decisions that are predicated on emotion. So it doesn't matter if it's Weight Watchers, Slimming World. I can name hundreds of diets.
Right.
They're gonna work for some people. They're not gonna work for others, and it's not taking shame or guilt on yourself to kind of go, "Oh, this diet doesn't work for me, so I'm the root cause of the problem." The path that you've taken might not have been the right one for you. It's
Right.
as simple as that. So I'm gonna take some of that burden today and say that responsibility is rested at my feet. It's obviously that's not fair because ultimately I can't take credit for things of the whole industry that are bad. But as in just to give some context for people to kind of go, it's not your fault for why this or that hasn't worked in the past. But what hopefully this episode today will give you is to change that perspective to kind of go, okay, it's not worked in that route. Why can't I pivot to do something else? And to not have to resort to worst case scenario of getting to purgatory or getting to the last result and you've got nothing left to go. To kind of be, I don't necessarily have to hit rock bottom. Some people might do because then it's a
Right.
wake up call, but I don't have to hit wake up call because somebody else did. I can go here, I can do that, make subtle changes with diet based on what I want. So
Right.
a why component is a very very important. What I'll get at because then I can see where the individual is coming from. Where are their anchor points? So if they do have a setback or adverse moment, because we're all going to have those, no
Yep.
matter what we do, the pain and suffering is just around the corner. So we might as well enjoy the good times, however long they last. Obviously, we would love them to last forever, but that doesn't happen. But by doing that anchorment to why it's important to an individual, you have something that gives you an individualistic approach or personalized approach that you could have the same goal as you or I,
Right.
but your anchor points are completely different. So they're going to depend on the individual as, okay, I've come off a call this afternoon of the lady in question wanted to be a better mother, but she was putting herself second to everything else. You can't do that because ultimately, if you want to be a better person in one aspect, you need to be a better version of yourself across the board. So
Yep.
that's you can't play second fiddle to everybody else because you're telling me that you're unworthy or undeserving of having that, which I think a lot of ladies do. That men don't have a problem with that. I can assure you that, as it doesn't matter if it's your spouse, your boyfriend, whoever. If I wanted to do something, I would do it, and then obviously speaking to, I can talk to my mother about this because it's quite funny. But she will say that the males have no problem going to the golf range, going with their buddies, and the other parents left to look after the kids.
Hmm.
That's technically not fair, because ultimately, why can then if you were then in their shoes, you have to. So it's that approach to emotions. Obviously, men need to give a little bit more, because it's like, well, if the lady in question in your life is allowing you to do things that you want to do, why can't she have some of that luxury as well? So it's almost through my own personal experience, so give some people some context as to why I come to that realize myself, is because my grandmother, my aunt brought me up, so I've got more of a maternal instinct to
Right.
kind of be more in tuned with the feminine energy, to kind of go, okay, I can do this, but there's going to be a cost, as somebody's going to have to take the burden of that. But if I was in their shoes, okay, it's a parental duty for the father to do the same, to look after the kid, to want to do it. Obviously, some fathers don't want to do that, so it's like, well, you can't have your cake and eat it. So that's
It
where it's trying to give the women in question to kind of go, well, why is it that you feel that you're undeserving? Why do you not think you're worthy of having? Because ultimately, I would say that you are, because if you want to change, why is, in your mind, this future unrealistic? Or why are you so pessimistic to not achieve it? To almost like have them question that belief in the moment, to kind of go, well, do I truly believe? Because I don't, and I'm the coach, to kind of go, well, why are you not allowing yourself to have something that you want to, based on X, Y, Z? I'm not going to say, as in people can input what that is, to kind of go, just to awaken something that maybe in their younger selves, that they would be more independent, they would be more go-getters, to because everybody's got the dreams and desires.
yeah.
For whatever reason, life's got in the way, and life's kind of dictated that, no, that's unrealistic. Why can't you? So people start to lower their standards and lower the bar, but the bar in terms of what they're capable of. So
One of the things that's really interesting is, you talk about how a lot of women struggle with this, and they do, absolutely. And I think, but in my experience with all the people that I've worked with, men struggle with it too, that feeling of not being good enough, but it plays out in their life in a different way. And one of the reasons why I love sharing stories is because we get to sort of see ourselves in other people's experiences. So you had a unique situation in the way that you were born and what you had to overcome at the early part of your
Mhm.
life. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, I never perceived it as adverse, and it was only through, doing things like this, that I've leaned into it, and this has taken years
Hmm.
to do it, because, gosh, how long have we been doing that? I've been doing that podcast myself on well, 7 years. We're nearly closing in on a decade. But to appear on other shows, probably, I don't know, 5 years, maybe a bit longer, and it would be others that would say, "Oh, your life's adverse." Yeah, but from my eyes, it's what I know. So thus, it's
Right.
not, because ultimately I could have this manifestation, or being of, oh, life's hard.
Right. Well, so I mean, basically, what I'm getting at is you were born different than the average person. And because of that, the world perceived you as being limited, potentially.
Not anybody that I knew.
Okay.
Not anybody that I knew,
All right. So,
or that wasn't the. I'm gonna use some woo woo words, and I never thought I'd ever say it, but as in the aura that people were giving off to me, would probably not be that, as you are unique in your own sense of being unique, that it was more of a blessing in disguise. Okay,
Yeah.
for me personally, growing up, I think through the ages of 10, 11, 12, 13 years old were turbulent, because I used to say things to get a reaction from
Hmm.
family. Oh, I wish I wasn't disabled. I wish I'd never been born. And they kind of go, well, they wouldn't bite. So I was like, but for me, I wanted to be normal, whatever that looks like.
Well, yeah.
I don't. I'm quite happy being a black sheep now. I quite enjoy being on the exterior, looking inwards. Well, I'm happy being out here. If you want to join me and then you get a different outlook on life, that's fine. So limited, probably not, but that's probably because people have been that I've associated with being very resourceful, very adaptable, very flexible.
Well,
To kind of,
and that what's beautiful about that is the fact that so many people that might be born with a disability or born with something quote different than the average person would
Mhm,
start to look at the world and look at themselves as if they're not good enough, they're not worthy of, they're less than other people. And so the fact that you were surrounded by people that didn't do that for you, and you created and had this belief that you were fine. And because of that, you were able to accomplish a lot of things. And this is one of the things when people get into that belief pattern that they're less than, and you were just talking about it with the women, right? If you're in that belief pattern that you're less than and you can't do these really great things, then you become what you believe. You actually don't accomplish the things that you wanted to accomplish. So, in your first career, let's talk about your first career and all that you did accomplish, because, and maybe share with the audience what your quote disability was.
okay, I got this wrong because my mother was on a holiday and she picked up on it. Because I got the disability the wrong way around, and I've been doing that for years. Um, So I'm gonna use it so I don't get it wrong, and then I'm gonna speak to her afterwards and kind of go put it in stone so it's in my head to kind of.
Perfect.
So it gives people sort of like a visual a cue. I've got something similar to amputation, but obviously mine's from birth, so I've not had it through cancer or anything like that. So I have to wear an artificial leg.
Okay.
So I think as a result of that, well, I started in mainstream sport, so everything that we're going to talk about in a second was alien to me. It was like, well, I've never seen another disabled person up until I was 15, other than maybe, I don't know, magazines or something like that. So I knew I was different, and I knew I wasn't like everybody else, but I had nothing to kind of go, what's life like with so
Oh,
disability sport
yeah.
opened my eyes to, how you can talk about it. So I get praised by people that know me. Oh, you got dark humor, yeah, but not all the time, because some people would kind of take it as black and white to kind of, you can't say that, yeah, but I have. But it would be in that realm a lot worse,
Yeah.
because that's socially acceptable in that environment to take the mick and to kind of fun at people, because it's like we're all the same. We've all got disabilities, thus that you've got to know the person to kind of go what's tolerable, tolerated, and what's not. Ultimately, outside of that arena, I wouldn't probably go as extreme. I sometimes do, and that's because I trust the people to kind of go, well, you're not going to take that out of context. And sometimes it's got me in trouble. Sometimes it hasn't. But be it, the example I'm going to use is my business coach is ex-military, so
Mhm.
it's old school, women and children and the men. So I went, you've served the women, shouldn't the cripple go next? he said, "Oh, have you just said that?" Well, I can't take it back. I've verbalized it. But the shock in people's eyes was unbelievable. It's like, has he just? It's like, yeah, but no, that's me. That though you know that's me joking a little bit to kind of go, okay, maybe could have said a little bit lightheartedly, a little bit more. I don't know how I'd do it, even to this point, because this is a couple of years ago. But that's what I believe, to kind of go, well, that's acceptable. That okay, if you guys would know me a little bit more, you would know I'd be that way inclined sometimes to kind of go just as a joke.
Right.
But then people will probably go, well, could you do this? No, because I've laughed about it. I could have a stern face and be able to deliver something, and people wouldn't be able to tell if I was joking or not. But as in that's the reasoning of it. But I think because of being in the realms of disability, that's become tolerant. Because when I walked into that world at 16, it's like, oh, you surely can't say this. I would probably kind of be shocked myself if somebody would say that 20 years ago. To kind of go, surely you can't say something like that about somebody else. But okay, I was describing myself, so thus I've got nothing wrong with the. I probably could use even more crass language than that, but as in, I'm okay with that kind of language to
Right.
describe a disabled person, because it's like, well, that's not that bad.
Well, and one of the things that, you said, it's like because you weren't around any other disabled people, you were just around people that were so-called normal. You didn't have a model for somebody being like, "Oh, my life is terrible because I'm disabled." Your life was just your life, and you got to live it and be, everybody. I have a crook If you have a crooked nose or if you have brown hair, it's just a thing that's about you, and I can joke about
Well, that's why I
brown
try to get to, if somebody's thinking like you described, Genea, of, oh, woe is me.
hair. Right.
I'm not gonna pity you, but okay. Let me have a greater understanding of where you're coming from where you've got to that, because that's pretty miserable. That's pretty crap.
Yeah.
If you're just existing through life, as okay, I'll empathize with you to kind of go, okay, can you give me some perspective as, and I did this as a post about a year ago, so because I was curious. I asked in a Facebook forum for amputees, if you had to describe your amputation in one word, what would it be? And it was split. I've told you this when we were talking about it beforehand, a couple of weeks ago. It was split down the middle. There was no in between. It was literally good and bad.
Mm,
Okay. For the bad ones, this didn't help my energy because I've not looked at it since, because I'm
right.
like really going down. I was like, yeah, you need to stop looking at that. Look at the positive ones to get reinforced, make you feel good. But I wanted to know why they were using so negative. We talked about hell. They were using words like that to just. It's like,
Yeah.
surely your life can't be like that 24 hours a day, because that sounds pretty miserable.
I
But
mean,
some people weren't willing to step outside of it as, okay, it affects me as, I'll use one of the clients I had. They gave me like five. I went, no, I want one. But gave me some perspective as, for the negative ones, they were open to kind of go, this is why it's a negative. Whereas the person that was in I want to use the negative. I don't want to use the negative headspace, but they were in a dark tunnel that they perceived they couldn't get out of. They were unwilling to see from my perspective as, hey, there is some sort of light at the end of that. It could be very, very minute,
right.
but there is light at the end of the
And
tunnel.
that's very much that idea of purgatory, right? Purgatory is that space between, right? You're not necessarily maybe all in the flames of, this terrible place, the 100% like buried in flame. You can see that there's something better. You just haven't quite gotten there yet. And so when I love that you saw that so clearly, eh, asking, what's your life like? And it was clear cut, like black and white, good or bad. And such a valuable insight into people's mindset. And I wonder too, because so much of that feeling less than comes from feeling like you're missing something. And because you were born
Mhm.
with your disability, you didn't lose a limb. I wonder if that really plays into the powerful mindset, because it is always, you've always been whole. Whereas somebody
Well,
else,
technically not, but I know where you're coming from.
right, but you've been as you've always been. You don't have this experience of having a limb that you lost.
Mm.
And so the other, amputees that it happened to them because of whatever reason it happened, they had this thing and now they don't have it. And I could see how that might really lead to that feeling of being less than, because they are less than they were born, than what they were born with. But you did a lot of really powerful, successful things in the first half of in your first career life. So let's talk a little bit about what you accomplished in this place of be having this mindset that you are whole and that you are strong enough to do anything. Tell me about what you actually accomplished.
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I think because I was naive ish, that's how I would look at life probably 25 years ago. That it was a ladder I wanted to climb. So it doesn't matter how big the rungs were between the steps. It was like, well, I want to get to the top of this. Don't know how I'm gonna do it, but because that environment is cultivated on the same mindset of I'm going to use success, even though it's probably not the right word, as in the direction that everybody wants to go in is in the same direction, it's positive. As in,
Hmm.
okay, the environment is very toxic as well, but as in everybody's pulling in the same direction.
Right.
Everybody that's in your corner wants the best for you. I'm not saying in sport, probably if you were a competitor of mine, I would not want you to succeed. I'll do everything in my power to make that not happen. But in terms of that, it was make the national team at what was I 16. I made our national development program within the space of 18 months. So it was like a massive meteoric rise, very very quickly. To okay, what's the next step? To okay, unfortunately, I was dropped from the program within 18 months and gone to university at the same time. For me, it was like, well, do I come back from Christmas break, becoming a regular student? To me, that was odd because it was
Yeah.
like, well, I've never had academics take center focus, be number one priority ever.
It was always sports.
It was always sports paid. I'll be generous, say 60-40. It's probably higher than that, but
Uh-huh.
the centerpiece was always the sport. As in, I could probably have excelled better in the classroom than I did. That's probably why I do what I do now, to kind of what I want to learn
Right.
to be able to advance myself, and if I can give that knowledge to people as a direct result, as a byproduct, it's fine. I want to know the information for myself. So if I come back to what we were discussing, it was for me. It was learning from other people that are around me. Okay, how did you get to the Paralympics? Da, da, da. So everybody's story is slightly different.
Right.
So it was almost a fascination of, well, I'm gonna almost be like your little brother or little sister. I'm gonna follow you around. I'm gonna learn everything and soak up every bit of information that I can. That then I can obviously replicate it. So I wasn't out of sport very long. I've got to thank. Well, he's no longer alive. He died just before the new year, last year, and he was more of an uncle to me than a performance director. He would always look out for me, always asking mother how I was doing. probably spoke to me a lot on the phone as okay. Before the Christmas break, what's your thoughts about doing rowing? I was a bit indecisive
Uh-huh.
even then to kind of go, well, let's run it past my mum because she's been there all throughout my career. And I put that conversation that I had with my mother in the beginning of my TEDx talk. So it will shock people, but I literally did the speech to her and she went, okay. She doesn't remember it being like that, but that's what I remember from the conversation. You could be very, very good or absolutely useless, but from somebody that's coming from a sporting background, those are two positives. Because if I'm not good at it, I could do something else, or I could do something else. I reinvent myself until I find something that I'm good at. So you view failure as a lesson to be learned. I said it's that
Right.
what is this thing trying to teach me? If I keep going over and over and making the same mistake, obviously that's an Einstein quote. It's the epitome of insanity. And then if I was good at it, which I ended up being, you stay in that sport and you keep going until obviously you're beaten. So did I think I would be a natural at it? No chance. I literally signed up to kind of go, let's try it. I don't know where I'm gonna go with this. And literally I was setting new precedents almost, I'm not gonna say daily, say weekly,
Mm-hmm.
what is physically possible, what's mentally possible, because the test we had to do on the rowing machine, I think we had to do 1,000 meters under 5 meters, under 5 minutes with just using our trunk. I got within about, I think, a second or two, and that was the first time I've ever been on a machine.
Wow.
So
So you
what?
had a natural talent already, like right off the
Well,
bat.
I'd come from an aerobic sport,
Yeah.
so I probably lost some of that, but their expectation as a national program is like, well, don't focus on the world champions in 2006. Focus on the world champions in. I was like, no, I want that thing is like that's in within touching distance. Why would I extend it out 12 months? Because I'm gonna obviously deter motivation is gonna be all over the place because oh now it's not so close that it's in touching distance that I literally can touch it. To I think the attitude that I displayed with my performance director, I think he was happy to hear what I said. I was like, well, I'm pretty close. I needed a partner. That was it. That we ended up going in 2006. But as in my perspective was like, well, why am I going to extend it out? Why am I going to make something that's
Right. They were like,
literally
"Oh, go."
literally there? Why am I going to extend it further out? So a lot of people do this. I was, oh, I don't think I can do it right now because my head's not in the right place or my motivation's not there. So
And
that's an excuse,
and
really.
one of the things too, it's like when you can accept failure, when you can realize that, oh, it's there to teach me something, you're there. 2006 is right there. You could potentially get it. 2007, they wanted you to shoot for that instead. It's like playing small. But because you did not have the mindset that failure like would demolish you and send you down to purgatory,
Well,
basically,
I think
you
in
you
fact,
could you can shoot for that shorter
yeah.
goal, and if you don't get it, you just know you keep pivoting and working
Oh
to
no, I had the
the next
belief in
thing.
myself that I probably would make it.
The belief, you believed
There
it.
was
Again,
there's
going back to that belief that you become what you believe.
well, it's a little bit of arrogance that sports people have got. It's like really, really fine between overconfidence and obviously it could perceive that can be perceived as arrogant, but as in I had the belief that I had the right people behind me to, and I did. Literally, I had the where I live in Wales, the Welsh governing body threw all the resources at me
Yeah,
because the Welsh Disability Sport Wales performance director had this set in his mind to let's get as many athletes who are Welsh to the Paralympics. Rowing is a new one, thus let's see how many we can get. And
nice.
literally, well, London, he did a very, very good job. But for me, I look at it now as like that's a heavy burden for me because I've got to deliver it. And obviously at the time I probably didn't. I probably kind of went, well, I've got this resources. I had numerous coaches to anybody that came up against me individually. And I've literally seen somebody being psychoanalyzed in front of me. That was hilarious to watch. But the person was biting out of his hand. Every word he said, the other person believed. Oh, James is training X amount of times. Some of it was not true. I was training close to it, but not exactly.
Right.
So the other person literally cried off and went to complain to their. Why am I not getting the same thing as James? Because ultimately, the program that I was in is the envy of every disabled athlete in the world, and we only have 3 million people in total as a population in Wales. I couldn't tell you what the actual percentages for disabled, but literally, himself has been there, done it, that got the T-shirt. That as like reverse psychology. It was like I wouldn't have bought into it completely. I'd have gone and kind of gone, okay, you're putting James on this proverbial pedestal. He needs to come and prove that person didn't. He kind of cried wolf and he ran off and he didn't because I knew I was gonna beat him,
Right.
but he didn't really want to even step up to the challenge as I
Yeah.
would have done to kind of go on. Okay, if this
So,
person is as good as you say he is, and I've got the conviction in myself that I'm better than him, let's have a. But that's obviously what I've been through the early part of my career conditioned
right.
to literally you are we'll use a British term, the dog's bollocks. I
Mm-hmm.
if and in that sport, I was never beaten in 4 years.
And so you had great success in sports, and then you retired at 26. Is that correct?
I think so.
It's about 26, if I remember. Anyway, you
It's about that.
retired.
It's about that time frame.
You
Yeah, yeah,
retired,
yeah.
and things changed when you retired. You, instead of being that driven, proactive, powerful mindset man that you are, you slipped into, let's call it, a dark place. You want to tell us a little bit about, well, tell us what do you think was the reason why you slipped into this sort of depressive place?
I didn't prepare. I didn't prepare. I assumed that I would get a standing ovation, a round of applause for a career, and I chose to step off stage right. I know that's a choice. I probably could have probably got the accolades, but as in, if you don't plan to kind of go, this is when I'm going to plan to retire. No, the other people are caught unaware. So that's okay. Maybe you could have started because I did contemplate during the lockdowns and the pandemic to kind of I should have could have would have had a more illustrious career than I did, and literally the performance he didn't. You made a choice to retire. That okay in hindsight now, 10 years after that event, I maybe have not would have got maybe who knows, it could have been worse for heaven forbid. But in terms of me, I think because I was unprepared, I didn't like it to be on this welfare state to start off because none of my family's ever been like that. That I was making myself probably feel 10 times worse. That okay, your athletic career is not what you set out it to be. As a 16-year-old, I wanted a gold medal at the very top. It didn't come. Obviously, it was elusive. But my definition of success is massively changed in 20 years.
Right.
But I think because of retiring and not having a clear outlook or clear plan as well, what do you want to do next in life? That I was almost I was going in. Okay, we got the luxury. We got GPS now on the phone, but as in I was going into a wilderness without a map. You're gonna get lost.
Right.
So okay, that's in hindsight to kind of go, well, that's bound to happen if you don't know the lay of the land, the terrain, etc. You don't be able to distinguish one tree from the next. So for me, why did I go to such a dark place? Probably a lot of complaining, a lot of whinging, a lot of moaning, as you know, pointing
Mhm.
fingers to to. I probably would be more respectful of myself to own some of that, to kind of go, well, your circumstances are a byproduct of whatever you do, good or bad.
Yeah.
Then probably didn't kind of go, well, oh, I didn't, I retired and I didn't get a fanfare about it. Okay, moaning. I'll probably slowly going down
Yeah.
that
I
down that play. I can't even think what it is.
I think
Going down
that I think that place, that dark place that people get to, it doesn't happen overnight. And you're right, when you don't have a plan, when you don't have an idea of where you want to go, it's real easy to just sit in the muck and sort of be in this place. So you were on the welfare state, which nobody in your family had ever been on. So that's kind of this place of not feeling so great about yourself and not knowing what you want to do. And I think a lot of people can relate, like if they lose a job and they don't really know what they want to do. One of my old clients, he lost his job of 18 years and he had a decent severance package, but didn't know what he wanted to do and didn't want to end up with another terrible job. So he just sort of stayed stuck until his severance was pretty much running out. And then, those flames started burning his feet for him to motivate and do something to get out of that place of purgatory. So you're in this dark place. Part of it, not having the purpose, not having the plan, is a big piece of why you ended up there. What did it take for you to get out of that place? What was the precipice? What was the catalyst for you to say, okay, enough is enough? Let me step forward and do something different.
it was the effect having on like immediate family, because they went for, I think I was accepting of having, not being well groomed, etc., etc. I was okay with that, but as in when it was having a knock-on effect on other people with their mental well-being, I kind of went, this is unacceptable. This is I can see that they're slowly spiraling themselves. That no, 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 you can't take other people with you. And I think for me
Mhm.
that was the catalyst to kind of go, boom, okay, we need to change this. I didn't have to kind of go. I never resorted to, I was depressed, but as in not the clinical aspect of it. It was more like, well, I'm moping around. I'm really just going. I'm
Right.
skating through life, and I think the direct knock-on effect it was having on other people. I was like, oh, this has got something is gonna have to give, and something needs to change. And
This is a really powerful thing, I think, because sometimes, a lot with all the self-help gurus and the coaches, and they all say you have to do it for you. You have to really want to do it for you for it to really take hold. And well, that's true. Like you've got to want to do it for you for it to be a
Mhm.
long-term change and effect. But sometimes when you're in that place, when you're sort of in the muck, in that purgatory sort of place, sometimes it's the way things are affecting other people that is the motivation for us to do it, or you don't want to let somebody else down, or so, a lot of people will say that's a bad thing, but I really think sometimes when you're in that place, whatever it is to get you to take the first step is a good thing. And it doesn't matter necessarily if it's 100% totally for you. If it's like, you know, 20% for you, 80% for somebody else, and it's what gets the ball rolling, then that's okay. There's no need to feel bad about that. And I know some people like point the finger and say, well, that's not the way it should be. Whatever gets you to take the first step, because I know, and I've seen thousands of times, is sometimes that's all it need is you take the first step and then you start going and you start to comes back to wanting to do it for you. How was it for you once you took the first step?
I started probably taking bold moves. I think if memory serves me right, my mum went on a holiday. Even back then, to she'd planted the seed of me getting into coaching a long time
Mm,
ago. And I went, nah, I wasn't ready back then because the mindset I had as an athlete. Some people would have been okay with it as me to coach like that. Some people would have hated my guts. I just would have been. I'm just going to be real with that because that's how I was. In that arena that is high level sport. Well, it's probably changed a little bit, but as in when I was competing, it's their way or the highway. And obviously, I would have coached like that as, "Oh, you're fat. That must be your fault." And I think how I've evolved through becoming a coach and getting qualified as a coach, you got to be a little bit more empathetic towards that because obviously everybody's going to have a story as how they got there. If I'm not empathetic towards that, that's not fair on the individual. That I'm just sugarcoating. Some people need to take responsibility and they've not taken care of themselves, and that's where they're at. Some people obviously regret that, and some people don't. It's like that. Okay, that's fair enough. Okay, but you can't come and cry to me when you want to change
right.
because you're not showing me that you want to change. Because ultimately, your behavior is telling me otherwise, and it's okay to not want to change and own it, but that's predicated on obviously the probably my story is I owned it because it affected other people. So I took it upon myself while she was away to get qualified as a personal trainer. I just kind of looked on the internet. There's a training academy here. There's a training academy here in person. Okay, how much is it going to cost? I'm lucky that my grandmother's did a lot of saving when I was younger. That I could afford it outright.
Right.
Boom, 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 boom. 6 weeks later, qualified, and then I think within a couple of months working in a gym. To
Yeah.
literally, it was like okay, I'm fed up of being reliant on. It's not that bad in the UK, but as in some people are happy on it, I wasn't. But I kind of made the decision as well. We're gonna go to full time employment to work for myself. The state was happy because it's like, oh, good on you to get to use some, be proactive to be resourceful. The system doesn't work a little bit because I had to come off the system while I was getting qualified. If I would have been on a different program, I still would have got the money. That's a bad loophole, but as it is what it is. But once I came off, bang, and then did that, and then I spent about 2 years in person doing that, and I still keep in touch with clients. I had that from those
Yeah.
days. It gave me the impetus to. I had to go online because of the
So
travel was kicking my backside.
mm,
I think because having the disability on top of it, of having the long hours,
right.
not sleeping very much, and eating at late hours, it was paying a toll to kind of need to do what I do now, because then technically I can actually have more an effect because I'm more readily available than people actually perceive.
Right.
To literally, you almost have me 24 hours a day. You wouldn't in a gym environment because obviously
Right.
if I'm with somebody else, I can't just. Oh, Genea, you need something right now. I can't do it. I'm respectful to
Yeah.
that person, and you in turn wouldn't want that to happen to you.
Yeah.
Whereas online, as long as I'm not with somebody, you've got email, you've got my all these things available to you to message me. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Okay, the US probably has a luxury that if you message me tonight, you have a response when you woke up
Right.
because it'd be in. Oh, he's and I think a lot of the US clients are like that. Yeah, but I'm 5 hours ahead of Eastern time.
Yeah.
And I'm 8 hours ahead of Western time. That I've got license that technically it's not that quick because if it was you in the same time zone as me, it's not that instant.
Yeah.
But as in, I think that's what they liked about it is it's quick, but I've got loads of hours to play around with to
Yeah.
kind of go, okay, if you message me after hours my time, you're going to get a response back the next day. So, and that's not always feasible in person because you've got travel, you've got
Right.
obviously persons that you just can't answer somebody immediately. Okay, so if it's an emergency and it's
Right.
urgent, that's something different. But I think because of the pandemic, people have appreciated online a little bit more than
Yeah.
maybe to kind of go, whoa, it's not as good as in person. I'm not going to dispute that because that's true. As in, if you were um, going to get the best return, it's better as a relationship to do it in person because ultimately I can read your body language, I can know how you're feeling, etc. And I've done that with clients in person because they were being too hard. One
Yeah.
in particular was being hard on himself because he hadn't done it as well as the week before. I went, well, let's take into account sleep. Let's take into account, have you eaten well today?
Right.
What's the stress you've had at work? And he kind of went, yeah, you're right. And he's done a testimony for me recently to kind
Yeah.
of go, he remembers that to kind of go, I went, well, let's put things into perspective as, okay, it's not the desired outcome that you'd like. I'm no longer operating in the marginal gains that's important. If
Yeah.
we were talking about high level sports, yes, one training session may make the difference between winning and losing. Maybe. But
R-
you only know that after the fact that, okay, the other person's outworked me somewhere throughout that season. You need to go back to the drawing board and work harder than the other. And coaches do it to kind of
Yeah.
go, oh, this person is next to you. Got me an
So
extra percentage out of me all the time. But as in, people need to remember that it's very subjective to you need to bring in question how it relates to you. As in, okay, I don't know, sleep. How old are your kids? You say all these factors come into play as going to
right.
have a bearing on um, your overall result of hormones for women. Men a little bit less so, but as in for women, you know, are you menopausal? Are you before? Are you in your period? And things like that. These are all going to have factors on whether what you. So it's for me as a male coach to have a better understanding as okay, I'm not a female, so thus I can't relate anatomically. I can't. Even if emotionally I'm invested to have a better, I physically don't know what it's like to be a woman, but if I have a better understanding from the literature and all that thing, I can kind of go, okay, based on, and I've done it to
Yeah.
kind of remind clients, well, you can't compare as a female one week to the next because of your, even if you're no longer having periods, that you need to compare when those would have been.
Right.
So compare one time
Yeah,
of the
there's
month
still there's
to do
still
that.
a cycle. So just one quick, like, what would you say, just this is a yes or no question, would you say that once you took that step and you started moving into coaching and building, did you regain your old mindset?
I don't think so. I think it's slightly up because some of that mindset that I had previously doesn't work in this capacity that I'm
So
in
you
now.
had
So I
to
had to evolve it a little bit.
evolve. Yeah. Beautiful. And that's it's a powerful thing, right? Because as we move into new realms, we the more we evolve, the more flexibility and ability we can have to help others. I always know in my own work, I say we can only take people so far as we ourselves have come. Now, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, wants to work with you, all of those things, how do they do that? Tell us all the goods.
You can get in touch with me. Social media is probably a better one because then you can actually ask me questions to be able to go whatever it is. It's something we discussed today, and then it gives you license to kind of go what content's already out there. If you wanted to speed up that process, obviously go to my website, and then the booking procedures all there to book in with to have a 30-minute call. I'll deep dive see what you've tried. Why is it important for you to get to the goal, to kind of go
Yeah.
to see if and how I can actually help. If I can't, obviously I'd signpost somebody to direct competitor. I've got no problem doing that, to kind of go based on what information you've given me. I think this individual that I know, so I've already vetted them for you, would be better suited for you. And obviously it's only hooking up the connection, and obviously you as a person to vet them yourself, to kind of, no, I relate more with James. I think I'll come back. I'll hold up my hand up and kind of go, okay, that's fine. But just so there's a better synergy with you getting the results. So if you take us out of the equation,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, that's what I think distinguishes between a good and a great coach is they're willing to kind of go admit where, no, I can't help you. I think you do better with somebody else, or I think you aren't best suited right now for coaching. I'm more than happy for you to come back in a couple of weeks, couple of months. But here's some free resources in the meantime that I think is going to help you. And then if you obviously utilize those, the better. If you don't, obviously that shows me that at that point in time, we definitely probably butt heads, because that's one of my pet hates a little bit.
Yeah.
If people don't do things, it's like, well, obviously you don't want it enough. And it's a question that I ask: is it a noun thing or a later thing for people? If it's a later thing, that's fine. That's okay to you and I, because it's like, okay, we will circle the wagons and we will come back and follow up. If you, and this has happened with one of my clients that's actually done it. They did say it was an owl thing, but it wasn't. So they were lying to themselves. And obviously, I'm gonna believe what you tell me, because I'm gonna re-ask the question as, okay, if you're a 10 out of 10, the results didn't speak for himself. He works with me now and he's getting a result. But as in, what he realizes now was was he was getting information from all over the place. He was bombarding himself. So, but he can realize that, okay, I probably should have just told the truth, that I might have wanted to be in that, which everybody does, but I realized that maybe I don't want it. The desire isn't as strong as I would like it to be, which is okay, because for whatever reason, over that course of the one that hurts hard is probably the unworthiness, or
Yeah.
what I was speaking about before, because you're almost telling yourself, well, you don't, the thing that you crave the most, you don't deserve it.
Well,
But
and that,
that's obviously a belief system.
yeah, and that
100%.
place, when you're in that place of purgatory, like you're not happy, you want something better, but you have to want it. You have to really want it enough to take an action, and taking action sometimes feels a little uncomfortable. I know when I have calls with people and we're checking to see if it's a right fit, and you talked about that, it's got to be a right fit for you, it's got to be a right fit for me. And it's, one of those things is somebody has to be committed to actually doing the work to get the result, because you'll get some results by half-assing it, but if you're spending the money and you're taking the time, you don't get the time back. You can always make more money, you never get the time back. So it's important to step in, and whether it's for you or for somebody else, because maybe it's that first step that gets you going. But there's got to be some drive for you underneath that as well. And if you're looking for James, it's jamesowenroberts.com. So y'all, unless you're driving, take a moment, open up your browser, type in elevatebookacall.com or James Owen Roberts, jamesowenroberts.com. Exactly. All right. And one last question for you, James. If you needed to tell your past self, who was in purgatory, one thing to help get him out of purgatory, what would be the piece of advice that you would give him?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'd probably beat the living daylights out myself. Um, But as in a piece of advice.
Yeah, what would you tell him? What did he need to know in order to take that first step?
Well, I think everything's going to be all right. I think where people, and I'm going to utilize myself as the vehicle. I think because there's the uncertainty of what, because I was unprepared. I
Right.
didn't have a map, thus I didn't know where I'm going, so I don't have a purpose. Because the future was so uncertain from a negative perspective, I didn't want to step into it. So whereas where I get people to look at it now is like, well, even if it's positive, the future is still uncertain,
Yeah.
but your attitude is completely different.
Yeah.
How you step into it. So for them, for me, I'd probably say the future's bright. It's just have the conviction that what you had before, what you have in the future, that if you work, I work hard, and I know what hard work is. So you work hard and things will fall into place. It's just obviously subjective as what that looks like, but as in just having the willingness to
Knowing it's going to be
be
okay.
okay,
That's huge.
which technically is this. I think Bob Marley.
Well, yeah, that's true. But yeah, that knowing that it's going to be okay. And as long as you're willing always to keep taking steps forward, it will always be okay. So that's very powerful. Thank you, James, for sharing with us your story, your insight. And for all of you listening, remember that when you feel good about who you are and what you do, we elevate and evolve humanity. Thank you very much. We'll see you all next time on Be the Wolf. Bye-bye.